War, chaos, violence, and more unsafe world comes to mind. But if we're being honest, that's also the world that we're living in now with the UN. So my friends across the street worry that with President Trump's peacemaking,
What time is it? It's like, yeah, please. It's been 7 hours. Look, this is going on for like 13 minutes.
Is your gal still up 50,000?
Praise be to Allah.
So just humor me for a second.
In the words of our president.
Trump's ambassador to the UN, Mike Waltz, was up there at a UN event speaking about the peace that Donald Trump and Israel bring to the world. That's when the laughter broke out. That's when the anger broke out. That's when the jeers broke out. That's when people said, what the f are you talking about? Peacemaker Donald Trump and the peacemaker from Israel? This is at a UN event. And I figure, you know, all these peacemaking countries would be happy to hear about peace. That is, if it was a reality. Here's one of those former officials from Donald Trump's administration, Joe Kent. He's pointing out exactly what it is that he figured was going to happen because it's happening.
It's absolutely essential that we ensure that the Israelis do not sabotage this two-week ceasefire or eventually the lasting peace that we're trying to achieve with the Iranians. We're on the cusp of being able to have the Strait of Hormuz reopened to hopefully start to get the world energy supply and commerce back online. The last thing we need is the Israelis doing what they have done in past negotiations and targeting the negotiators or taking a series of strikes that escalates the conflict. In order to ensure that we can restrain the Israelis, we actually have to start removing features of the military support that we give to them. We have to take away enough from them that they simply cannot go on the offense, that they're using all their military capabilities that we provide for them and that they have organically for the defense of their country and not for offensive operations inside of Iran. It's absolutely critical that we take this step and don't just take Israel's word for it, that they agree to this ceasefire simply because they have a very bad track record of adhering to these deals. We also have to keep in mind that Israel has a different strategic outcome than we do. Us working towards any kind of a deal with the Iranian government works against the Israeli strategic objectives of toppling this government completely and totally. We have to recognize that in order to properly address Israel, because Israel could spoil any peace that President Trump is working to achieve.
There's Joe Kent still somehow believing in Donald Trump's peace. He left the administration over this Iran war, has been critical of them. They hate him now, but still he has that same loyalty left. I mean, Israel is going to destroy Donald Trump's peacemaking because Donald Trump has always been a peacemaker. If we want to stop Israel from continuing these attacks on neighbors in the region, what we'd have to do is stop giving them all of our money and weapons to keep doing it. That is one thing he pointed out. Another reason why Joe Kent should probably look out for wherever he is, because they don't play that. Especially since here's proof of it.
Just one question, Jeremy. Thank you.
Could you, without the United States, without the refueling capabilities, for example?
We're going to close. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Thank you, everyone, for your questions today.
He's very happy to not answer that question of whether or not they can continue their attacks on the region without the help of the United States of America. He shut up. His handler said no more questions because we definitely don't want to answer that one, in case more Americans might realize the only way they continue these attacks is because we keep helping them continue these attacks. Basically, they're our attacks. Speaking of attacks, this is what's happening. As we've been talking about victory in the region, as we've been talking about agreeing to the 10-point plan that includes Israel no longer bombing people, guess what's happening?
Despite Trump praising a big day for world peace and Iran, Israel and the U.S. agreeing to a temporary ceasefire, war is still ongoing here in Lebanon. And I'm just standing here in front of the cafe in Saida in southern Lebanon that was targeted overnight by Israel, killing at least 8 people. The strikes happened at around 1:30, just before the ceasefire was announced. We don't know who was the target, but what we know is that the cafe was full of people. They were playing cards, they were smoking nargile, and the corniche where the cafe is located was also full of families, displaced families who were sleeping in the cars because they had nowhere else to go. The cafe is also located in Saida, which is far away from the front line and is not part of Israel forced displacement maps. Despite Pakistani mediators saying that Lebanon is part of the ceasefire, Israel's prime minister said Lebanon was not included. And since then, since the ceasefire was agreed, strikes have been ongoing here in Lebanon, with strikes across the country and at least 5 killed, including a strike on an ambulance.
French-Lebanese journalist Nada Atala, they're in front of some rubble. A bombed cafe area where people were enjoying normal as much as they could, normal parts of their lives. That is before Israeli missiles rained down and killed, they said, at least 8 people there. That is right after this whole ceasefire and ending of aggressions and war happened. This gets to be a loud clip, you guys. This is the bombing that happened that she was just reporting on. Seems like they're still bombing people. Seems like they're targeting civilians, innocent folks in areas where they're just, trying to survive in the middle of this onslaught from, as Mike Waltz was mocked at the UN for saying, the peacekeepers of the United States and Israel. Here's more of the aftermath.
اعتداء على بيروت يعني بعد مش ما واضح الوين هذه الصورة من بردور.
Maybe these 2 weeks that Donald Trump says he's going to have with these negotiations, again, based off the 10-point plan, the 10-point list of demands that Iranian leadership has put forward, which includes Israel to stop bombing areas like this. Maybe Donald Trump will be that grand negotiator in these things, or he'll continue to follow behind with everything Benjamin Netanyahu tells him to do. As we're in this precarious position with this, I guess, fake ceasefire because Israel keeps bombing people, this is where things have developed too. This is from Al Jazeera. Iran's Foreign Minister Aragashi says he discussed Israel's violations of the ceasefire in Iran and Lebanon in a phone call with the head of the Pakistani army, General Asim Munir. In a readout of the talks released by Aragashi on Telegram, he also said he expressed appreciation for Pakistan's effective efforts to end the war and strengthen peace and security in the region. A senior official in Iran has told Al Jazeera that the country will punish Israel in response to the crime it committed in Lebanon and the violation of the ceasefire terms. Here's a quote: "The ceasefire includes the region, and Israel is known for breaking promises and will only be deterred by bullets," is what the official said. Iran's Fars news agency, quoting an unnamed military source, says that Iran is preparing a response to Israel's violation of that ceasefire. It took like a couple hours of this proposed ceasefire that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth are now saying is absolutely what it is, that it is, and victory is theirs. But it took them a couple hours for Israel to violate it. And then, as Joe Kent said, as much as he still believes in Donald Trump and his peacemaking negotiation skills, as Joe Kent said, Israel is going to sabotage it. So if and when Iran responds to these continued attacks from Israel, if they continue to attack, or if this is just an opportunity for them to kill more people and then brag and be happy about it before they then stop, if Iran then responds, you know what we're going to say here. Look, those Iranians broke the ceasefire. It wasn't Israel at all. And now we have to go back to fighting.